Hey, I'm Laura. Thank you for watching this episode of Undistracted. This is a place where we learn from our guests how to be better at building our lives with intention around our passions, our purpose, and deal with some of the stuff that can get in the way of that. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. Subscribe to Undistracted with Laura Bennett wherever you get your podcasts as well. Today we're talking about something that can get in the way for a lot of us, past trauma and some of the present day unhealthy cycles it can leave in our lives. Our guest is actor, now author Zachary Levi, who you might have seen in NBC's hit series Chuck, also leading the charge in DC's Shazam, among many other projects. Zach's new book, Radical Love, is out now, and in it, he talks about his own experience with trauma, hitting rock bottom, what he's done to overcome some of the trauma in his life, and how that has led him to have a personal mission to help all of us heal our inner worlds, and with that, bring health and wholeness to the whole world. Let's welcome Zachary to Undistracted. Zachary Levi, thank you so much for joining us on Undistracted. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Reading Radical Love, it's an incredible thing that you've done, offering us so much of an insight into your life. It's obviously a very vulnerable thing to do. Why did you want to share so openly about your life and experiences?
Well, honestly, I wasn't intending on writing a book. Once I went through my mental health journey, I couldn't stop talking about it. I can't stop talking about it. And I was happy to just talk about it on podcasts. And then HarperCollins saw some of those podcasts and said, hey, we really think there's a book here. And, I'd been approached about writing books before, but I don't know. I was like, I haven't lived enough life to write an autobiography or memoirs or whatever. That just seems like a waste of people's time. But this felt like an opportunity if I could be vulnerable, if I could, I love living my life as authentically as possible. I like people to know the real me. I do enough faking on screen. So I like just being a very, authentic version of myself. And I really do think that vulnerability is a superpower. I think that it begets more healing. It begets more vulnerability in others. And I've noticed this throughout my life. Anytime I'm just willing to say, hey, I did this, or I struggle with this, or this is my real life. Overwhelmingly, the feedback is positive. Overwhelmingly, you get people saying thank you, and I just happen to be blessed with a, sizable platform, not the biggest in the world, but certainly not the smallest. And I really love people, and I want us to love ourselves and each other. And I think that to the extent that if I could share, this journey of mine, warts and all, and just kind of talk about the struggles that I've gone through, I think other people would feel less alone in the struggles that they go through, and they would feel more inclined to want to share their own story. And I think that's a massive part of it all. We have got to talk about what's going on in our lives. The great lie of mental illness is that you're alone, that nobody knows what you're feeling, and nobody will ever know what you're feeling, and you shouldn't burden anybody with it. And you're uniquely broken and no one can fix you. And it's just so not true. I mean, we are not that. I mean, we're all unique, but we're not that unique. We're not so unique that we're like the first person to go through these various circumstances, albeit, everyone's circumstances are slightly different. They're with slightly different people or in different places in the world, but anxiety is anxiety. Depression is depression. Shedding light on things is the great disinfectant. If we want to really heal all of this stuff and get everybody healed in their hearts and healed in their minds, which ultimately is the wellspring of either all of the good in the world or all of the bad, then I think that's where we got to go. So that's why I felt very inclined to just lay it all out there and let people read it.
And one of the really, I suppose, the wart moments of your story is absolutely what you share about your relationship with your mum and some of the impact on that on you as a kid growing up. How did your relationship with her shape your childhood?
Immensely. I mean, my mom was the most important figure in my life for sure. My dad wasn't really around. My stepdad wasn't really a dad. He was there, but it was mostly just, he was working and not really involved in our lives. And so I didn't really have a male influence, unfortunately. I didn't really have a father figure. And my mom was, I lived with her all of my life until I left the house. And she, as I say in the book, she was a really incredible woman, intelligent, charming, talented, beautiful, had so much possibility, but was herself a victim of a tremendous amount of psychological abuse at the hands of her mother. And the irony is that my mother never wanted to be anything like her mother. And then because she had all this unhealed trauma, she ended up being exactly like her mother. And I think that was very hard for her to ever grasp. Being wrong is she was conditioned to believe that to be wrong meant not to be loved. And so that led to a lot of really bad, cycles in my mom's life where she couldn't just say, hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong to do this or whatever. Yeah. And if you can't ever do that, you're going to burn every relationship in your life. And so, but my mom, was an immense impact. She had immense impact on my life. A lot of that good. I think I learned a lot of good things from my mom. I'm able to look back after now going through a lot of the healing I've gone through and be very appreciative of the things that I think she did right in life. But she also was very psychologically, emotionally, mentally abusive to me and my sisters. And I had no idea the impact that was having on me until I basically completely fell apart at 37 and didn't want to live anymore. And then had to unpack all of that and recognize, wow, I was raised by parents that did not know how to love themselves. And so I never saw an example of it, which was really unfortunate. And then on top of that, because they didn't know how to love themselves, they didn't really know how to love us kids. And so we were all very much, detrimentally, we were behind the eight ball. We didn't even know it. I didn't know it. I felt like, hey, I've worked through this stuff and I'm doing okay and I'm alive and I'm, particularly in your early 20s. You're not really grasping. And that, and psychologists will tell you this, that mental health or mental illness, it shows a little bit in your 20s, but it's really not until you get into your late 30s and your 40s that it rears its ugly head if you have not taken care of it. And I definitely did not, because I didn't even know there was anything to take care of, which is why I tell everybody that I come across, go to therapy. Go to therapy. Even if you don't think you need to go to therapy, go to therapy. In fact, a lot of people, particularly the people who don't think they need to go to therapy, actually do really need to go to therapy. Yeah. I wish I would have had somebody in my early 20s grab me by the scruff of my neck and just say, listen, I love you. I know this isn't going to make any sense, but in you go. And you're going to go talk to somebody and you're going to talk about your mom and you're going to talk about that relationship and how it's messing you up. And you're going to have this person who's a professional help you to navigate those waters, unpack all of that trauma and really heal from it and really find who you are in all of that. I wish I had that in my early 20s. I didn't. So it kept, it kept kind of percolating and festering inside of me until I couldn't hold it together anymore. I was white knuckling my way through life, not even knowing I was white knuckling, but I was. And so,
one of the greatest fears, I think, for kids of parents who've either abused them in some kind of way, be it mentally or otherwise, is that, like you say, they will just end up following the patterns of their parents. And it's this horrible thing when you have that moment where you go, oh my gosh, I am behaving like my mom, I'm behaving like my dad, and I really didn't want to. Do you think that is kind of, I don't want to say the destiny, but do you feel like we're kind of almost guaranteed to do that if we have lived in those situations? Or can we do something that kind of cuts that cycle short of impacting our lives in that way?
Therapy. Therapy is a massive part of it. There's a lot of things that then, as you're learning about yourself, like I learned, like I didn't know what self-love was. I didn't practice self-love. I am now, 4.5 years on from this very life-saving therapy, still very much in the process of learning what it means to love myself. I've only been doing it for, I'm an infant in this. So, but I learned that through going to that therapy. Look, I don't know that we're all destined to become our parents, but we probably are if we don't intercede on some level, I had a therapist tell me once, you either become exactly who your parent was, or you become the absolute opposite of your parent. But even that is not necessarily a healthy thing, because you're revolting against, you're rebelling against this thing you become over here is just another extreme of whatever this is. Instead of finding the healthy balance in the middle and saying, listen, yeah, my parents might have been super jacked up and this, that, and the other, but here's some other things that they didn't, and they might did right, or but you want to find the healthy balance in life in every field, any and every field. And so you might not become your parent, but if you don't, you're probably going to become an extreme version of what they weren't. And that's not really healthy either. So that's why I can't stop talking about therapy to people. I just think it's so crucial. It's just not, it should be so normal. In the same way that we all normalize, I got a cold, or I got a flu, or I've got, or cancer even. I got to go to a doctor. I have a broken limb. I have to go to a doctor. Nobody thinks twice about that. But if you're suffering through emotional and mental turmoil, you think, I'm just going to pull myself up by the bootstraps, and I'm going to, white knuckle it. I'm going to work my way through it. And because we're very resilient, because humans are very adaptive and resilient, you can fight through it for, like, let's say a week, 2 weeks, and then you might start feeling okay again. You go, I'm fine. See, I lasted through that. I'm not angry or as angry. Yeah. I'm not as sad. I'm not as stressed. I'm doing okay. But chances are that's just unmetabolized pain. That is that, certainly in my life, I didn't realize just how much I was doing what a therapist called me, or told me once, that he called hit and runs. I would get hit by this thing, and I thought I would deal with it because I would somehow logically think through it. Like, okay, this thing happened to me and I feel this way and blah, 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 blah. And okay, cool. And I'm going to move on. But I wasn't getting any of the healing I needed from that. I wasn't really understanding why I was feeling the way that I was feeling, and having a professional help me to unpack that. So you think you're good, but you're really not.
Yeah, it matters so much to actually get that help. And I think, interestingly, although there was so much that was difficult about your childhood and it led you through this kind of journey of healing, it also was a time where you discovered a relationship with God and you got the Christian faith that is still so important to you now. When did you first feel God and have an understanding of his existence in your life?
I was probably 4 when I was really blessed. I was a little kid, but I knew that I knew a couple of things. I knew God wanted me to be an actor. I knew that there was a God, and I knew that God loved me, and I knew that God wanted me to be an actor. Or at least I believed all of this in my little 4-year-old brain. And I've always had a really strong portion of faith in my life. I just always have, with the exception of, these moments where, particularly when I fell apart and I thought God had abandoned me, if there was a God. And I really lost my faith in that time. But fortunately, I don't think God really cares about that. I don't think God's up there nickel and diming us on that, because God is all knowing and all understanding, and saw the plight that I was in and wasn't going to like ding me for it. He was like, just hang on, hang on. I'm here. Trust that I'm here as best you can. And even if you don't, we'll have other people there interceding on your behalf. And I did. I had other people that were praying for me and lifting me up and believing for my healing and for redemption of whatever all of this craziness was. And but throughout my life, I've always had a really strong portion of faith, and it's always guided me. And it's taken on a lot of, my faith and my walk with God has evolved immensely over the, many years of me on this journey, as it does with everyone, as it should, by the way. You only have a limited amount of knowledge when you're first coming into contact with the concept of God. And then even as a young adult, you're still a dummy. You don't know most of anything. And, I remember in my, late teens, when I started to really kind of pursue God on my own, it wasn't just like, because my parents believed it. I was like, okay, let me go figure this out for myself, because I don't want to just believe what my parents believed. And I remember, like a lot of, I think, young Christians, I don't know about other religions, but at least in Christianity, you become very very passionate, but you really become like this little Pharisee almost.
Yeah.
You're so like die hard and like, yeah, we got to do it this way and that one. You're straight edge and everything. Oh, and we're going to go save the world. But there's not a lot of grace involved in that because you haven't lived enough life to understand that, hey, you're going to keep failing. You think you're going to hold up these, like, I'm going to be bulletproof and I'm going to be the best Christian ever. And I'm never going to, and then God just humbles you and 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 humbles you. And thank God he does. Thank him he does, because we all need to be humbled. In fact, it's one of the greatest problems in the world right now is that there's not enough humility. There's not enough deference. Everyone is so full of hubris. Everyone thinks they have all the answers. Everyone thinks that they're right and the other side is wrong. And there needs to be a hell of a lot more humility as we approach ourselves and each other and the universe and God. And everyone just, really needs to just shut the heck up a lot of the time and say, I'm here to learn. I don't know. I don't have the answers. And none of us do. We're all these, we're incredible creatures that we can even, reason and use logic and like wisdoms and, things beyond just the regular animal kingdom. Fine, good. But we're really still like, we know nothing. We have the teeniest little glimpse into whatever actual reality is. Yeah. And yet we think, I figured it out. Yeah. It's actually one of the most ridiculous things I can think of is that, throughout history, that mankind consistently comes up with, consistently says something to the effect of, there is a God and we know it entirely. Yeah. And it's like, what? Like, that's not even, if you believe in the concept, just in the concept of God, that means it's something outside of your knowing. It's so massive. It's infinitely large. It's infinitely powerful. It's omnipresent and omniscient and all of these things. And yet we think with our puny little minds, we got to figure it out. We got it. Yeah. We got it. And let me tell you all about it. And then everybody's got these different opinions of what it's all supposed to be. And again, it's all rooted in this really, I don't know, it's this really messed up hubris. And I wish that was so not happening, but it is. And that's why we need to, I think, radically accept, radically forgive, radically love, which I think is, love in and of itself, I think is radical. That's like when Jesus is talking about it, he said radical stuff about it. Like, hey, love your enemy and pray for your persecutor. What? Yeah. Like, how many people are doing that? Nobody's doing that. I know plenty of Christians who love Jesus who don't love their enemy because they think, well, I shouldn't have to. They're doing bad in the world. It's like, yeah, okay. And God loves them. Oh, wow. Does that throw a little monkey wrench in everything? Yeah, doesn't it? And also they're products of their environment. Like, how can you possibly hate this person if you actually do the mental exercise to recognize that they were a child at one point that got conditioned to be the person that they are right now? So whose fault is that? Is it theirs? Did they grow up twisting their mustache thinking, I'm going to go put dynamite on a train track? No, they didn't. They're just trying to do what they think is right per the tenets of the life that they were raised in. And the sooner we can all come back to that and recognize that that's how we ought to see each other. And it doesn't mean, there's a lot of things really, one of them is like, people think that love is just amplified like. It's, you like something. If you really like something, you love it. That's not true. There's romantic love. There's the feeling of being in love. There's all those romanticized ideas of it. But love is a choice. Love is being able to look at something, and even if you don't like it, recognizing that it is worthy of love because these humans are also children of God, even if they are doing wrong in the world. That just means that they have been bent and broken in ways that, hopefully, and by the way, only love is going to unbend them and unbreak them, not just heaping more shame on people. That is the opposite of everything, certainly that Christianity talks about, but even a lot of other people and a lot of other religions. Like, what are we doing? So that, I think, is a crucial part of this. And that's why I named it Radical Love, because it, like with my mom, I mean, I think it starts at home. We have to be able to look at our own parents and families and our abusers in those families and say, hey, I'm not going to let you do this to me. I can love you and not like you. I can love you and still have lots of boundaries, but I will love you. I will choose to acknowledge that you are worthy of the life that you are living, even if you are living it in such a twisted way. You are still a miracle. You're alive and you're a miracle.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about that when it comes to the bad people of the world. We want to say, no, none of them are deserving of their lives and they should all die. They should all be incarcerated. They should all be these things. And I don't think I think that's missing the point, because what is it to love those who love you? That's not really love. That's just easy,
And a huge part of this too that you bring up in Radical Love is talking about how radical it is to love ourselves, to forgive ourselves, and to get to a place where we're not self-shaming. That I think can be one of the hardest things to do. So how do we get there in life?
By doing the same thing, by saying, reminding yourself you are a product of your environment. And that doesn't absolve you. It doesn't mean, I got screwed up, so I'm just going to go do a bunch of screwed up stuff. No, you're still responsible. But we shame ourselves, and we learn that shame from our parents. We learn that shame from society, right? But we have got to be able to radically accept that we are doing the best that we can with the tools that we were given, as is everyone. I mean, that's what ultimately allowed me. I realized that, like Jesus talks about, it's like, well, how can you think that if you live in unforgiveness, then you will not be forgiven? Like that doesn't make any sense. Which is why you must first understand what it means that you're not righteous. No one's righteous, but also everyone is a product of their environment, and it is okay to radically forgive yourself, to not know better. You didn't know better. And that's where it starts. And then as I recognize that in myself, I go, oh my gosh, how can I possibly hold on to this anger with my mom for the rest of my life? I mean, my heart broke for my mom. I just saw this 5-year-old version of my mom who was abused by her mother. And I all of this animosity that I felt toward my mom, I just couldn't hold on to anymore. And it doesn't mean that it's like magically gone overnight. It's a process, like everything is a process, but that is the process. We've got to be willing to look at our abusers and see the hurt behind the hate, and, hurt people. I mean, these are things that we all know, but we don't apply enough. We don't really just set it in that logic.
And I think in the way that we're hearing you, talk about this now, and even in the way that you write, it's really clear to me that your desire in sharing your story and in helping us deal with whatever traumas we as the readers may face as well, you're trying to get people to a place where they've dealt with what's going on in their life so that ultimately the world can be a happier, healthier, kinder place. Why do you think there's a connection between that goal and that outcome and us dealing with our inner worlds?
Well, because we it's similar to like when you're on a plane and they say if the oxygen drops, then there'll be these masks that come down, and make sure you put your own mask on before you put it on anybody else's, or before you help anybody else. There's not a better metaphor or analogy for our own mental health and making the world a better place. It starts with you. By the way, so many far wiser, more intelligent people have said these things in so many different ways for so long, but it's just the truth. You can't expect to go make a positive change in the world if you're still all messed up inside. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't. I think even while I was messed up, God still used me to bring joy and do good and raise money for charities and all that. I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive, but if you're not doing yourself any favors if you haven't attended to your own garden, to your own oxygen levels. You have got to do that. But also in that journey, like I was just saying, to really go and do that work humbles you to all of that and makes you realize that, oh, that's right. Well, how do I forgive myself? Well, to radically accept and forgive myself, I have to accept that I did the best that I can, and I'm continuing to do the best that I can. But wait a minute, that doesn't just apply to me. That means that applies to everyone.
Yeah.
And then you can extrapolate that lesson out, and then, really hopefully walk in that grace and walk in that love, because that's the only way we're going to make the world a better place. We can't hate ourselves to a better world. We can only love our way there, and it sounds really hippy dippy and kumbaya. And I get it, because people go, well, what about these people? What about these people killing people over here? What about these wars? Look at Putin. Look at all that stuff. Well, we're supposed to love Putin. And the answer is, the really crazy answer is yes. As a matter of fact, yes. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean you have to like them. It doesn't mean we don't put up boundaries. It doesn't mean we don't go help our friends in the Ukraine and protect themselves. Yeah. All of the above. We can do all of that, and we can still look at Putin and go, wow, what a sad, broken man that he feels this is what he needs to do in order to do this. Yeah. And he should be put in a prison probably somewhere. But should he be tortured in that prison? Should he be shamed in that prison? Should he be vilified and turned into a monster in that prison? No, he shouldn't. He should, in some way, shape, or form, we should be able to, like, because it's all about boundaries, really. It's all about understanding that you don't have to attack someone who has attacked you. You can stop their attack and then be the bigger person and recognize that if you really, really care about making the world a better place, that means you care about all the humans and helping them, giving them the best opportunity to become the best version of themselves. And people do stupid stuff all the time, bad stuff all the time. Do we just write them off? Do we just say, you're done, you're canceled, you're whatever? Yeah. That's not helping them get to a better place. Or do you say, wow, as hard as this is going to be, we're going to try and figure you out and we're going to try and love on you. And it's not going to feel like romantic love. It's not like, oh, we're going to go hug old Putin and, oh gosh. Yeah. No, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that he is still a miracle. We're all walking around these bags of flesh. We are all miracles. There's only one place in the universe that we know of up to this point right now that has any life at all, which is all God infused through every blade of grass and every dog and every cat and every human and everything. And I think that, so many of the things that we are fighting over all the time on, blue and red and all of this stuff a lot of it could be really helped if we could all just stop and acknowledge that. If we can all just value life, you know what I mean? Even with the abortion thing, can we not value both the mother and the baby? Why can't we find that there is life in both? And there's got to be a way forward in that, as opposed to, this side judging these people for their decisions and this side judging these people. Guys, that's just a lot more hate that you're putting into the world and a lot more fear that you're breeding into the world. And again, I'm not an expert on all these, there's so many nuances and things and whatever, but I don't think our politicians lead in love at all. I don't. I think that there's the leaders of the world lead with ego and they lead with pride. And that is part of why we are failing, I think, ourselves and each other, because the most important leaders are not leading by that example. So how the heck are the rest of the people supposed to even understand that that's the way to conduct their life, unless they have other, mentors or leaders in their lives that do encourage them to lead with love. But I don't know. There's so many problems in the world, but I really do believe that if we can address everyone's heart and mind, if somebody could have got to Putin and helped him heal from whatever traumas he went through as a child, there's a good chance that he would have been a heck of a leader in Russia. But we didn't get to him in time. And so he's done all the things that he's done. And I think that of everyone, I really do. I think that there's no reason why we can't get to people unless they're born, just molecularly or, tweaked like a psychopath or a sociopath or whatever. But that's a very small portion of the population. Everybody else is a product of their environment. And those things are they're learnable and unlearnable. The neuroplasticity in our minds, our synapses can be rewired. We are learning more and more and more about this every day. And I think that if we can really dive into that and but we're not going to want to help everybody if we don't love them first, right? We don't want to help ourselves if we don't love ourselves. That was one of the biggest problems I had. I had all these people telling me, oh, you should do this and do that and invest this in your, take time for yourself, self-love, yada, 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 self-care. I go, okay, but deep down, I don't really feel like I'm deserving of it. So I'm not going to apply any of that. And the same is true away from us. If we don't see other people with the amount of love that I think we're called to love them with, why would we possibly invest in trying to help them heal their hearts and minds? Yeah. And then if we don't, then we lose. We all lose. But if we can do that, if we can really believe that everyone's worthy of that time and that effort and that love, and we can heal everybody, we don't have any other problems in the world. We don't have people killing each other, raping each other, stealing from each other. We don't have wars. We don't have people polluting the environment, killing our animals. We don't have any of those things. We don't have heads of industries and CEOs making obscene amounts of money on the backs of the workers. And also simultaneously like, I know it's kind of killing the environment, but somebody's going to kill the environment. Like, we don't have that because those people have like enlightened, awakened consciences where they go, whoa. Actually, I don't need all that money. We don't need all this money. We have so much money. Why don't we take some of that money and reinvest it back into our workforce and into our product so that we're not hurting anyone or anything along the way. Yep. We could easily do that. But all of these CEOs, we need to love them, but they're all being driven by survival ego, which is all money nowadays. Once upon a time, as hunter-gatherers, survival was actually quite simple. It was, do you have shelter? Do you have food? Do you have clothes? Do you have protection? Are you able to protect the life and the life givers in, your tribe? It was simple. Now it's simple in that there's only one thing that you need, which is money, right? It's all been simplified. So if I have money, I can have all those things. But now everyone's just running on this, and they're like, I gotta get more money. I gotta get more money. I don't know. My life's not going to be worth anything. I won't be. And it's a lot of survival mechanism. It's all fight, flight, freeze, and fawn that is like active in people's minds. And we got to figure out how to reprogram that stuff and get people to be like, yo, I don't need trillions of dollars. What are we even talking about? Yeah. I won't be able to spend a fraction, like Jeff Bezos. Like, I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's like, well, if you've got it, you should at least find a way to kind of use it to positively impact people, I suppose.
You want to be in the record books? Don't be in the history books because you were at one point maybe the richest person in the world. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Be in the history books by that guy became the richest person in the world. And then the rest of his life, he dedicated toward helping other people live a better life. Like that's the legacy you want to live and that you want to leave, And I think that comes from this love, hopefully.
Yeah. And I know you're going to have to go in a second. So I want to ask you a question that I ask all of our guests, Zach, and that is simply, what does it mean to you to live an undistracted life? On this podcast, we talk about building your life intentionally around your passion, around your purpose, which I have so loved hearing you talk about. What would it mean to you to be undistracted in pursuit of that?
Oh, man. Well, it would help me a lot. I get distracted a lot. So, but, that's something I'm working on too. Unfortunately, social media and all of the things, it's like now we live in a more distracted time than ever. And I don't see that slowing, unfortunately. But I think that we can, one of the practices of self-love is to keep promises that you have made to yourself. And I think we all struggle with that because, procrastination is big. Also procrastination shouldn't be something we beat ourselves up about. That's also a survival mechanism, as it turns out. But we look to distract ourselves because I think that we are afraid of failing the things that we keep promising ourselves, or like, oh, I won't do it well, or I won't do it well enough, or whatever. I'm guilty of this myself. And it's a matter of really just allowing yourself and believing that you can and should invest in the things that are important to you in your life, and knowing that you are worthy of doing that. We are all worthy of love. We're exactly who we are and where we are deserving and worthy of our own love, of other people's loves, of God's love. And the more we are reaching out to these external sources for distraction and validation, the less we are investing in the more, I think, powerful and important things in our life. And so what I try to do to be less distracted is I try to remind myself, acknowledge, oh my God, I'm just doing the dead scroll through Instagram again. Time out, stop doing this. What do I need to do? What do I know that is on my list of things to do? I got to go read that script. I got to go do that thing. I got to go run that errand. I want to go take, cooking lessons. I want to, all of the things that I put off and I put off and I put off. Those are the things that have real riches and return on investment in your life. You're not going to get any return on investment in social media other than maybe, well, there are some people that, use it very much as a business. And I suppose you could say that they get some financial ROI, but at the end of the day, the big return on investment is like, how are you enriching your life? How are you like investing in your own life in a way to strengthen it, bolster it. And so that then you can be of more use in the world and making the world a better place. And I'm super altruistic about that kind of stuff, but I really believe that it's true. I think that we all can and should have a responsibility to do good in the world. And it doesn't mean we all have to do it on the same level. Some people don't have the same platforms. That's okay. But you can do good in your circle, whatever your circle is, you can go and do good in that. And let yourself be distracted by that, not by actual distractions.
Yeah. And I appreciate that when your account distracts us on Instagram, you've got some of the best stories and the best dad jokes and the best memes ever. So thank you so much for that.
Honestly, well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's I know I need to kind of keep my social media going, if for no other reason than to just at least try to spread some joy and some wisdom and some truth, right? Yeah. And that's why I've kind of gone pretty much almost exclusively to stories, because if people are looking for a way to just go to distract themselves, let them at least distract themselves with something that is going to bring some positivity in their life. So
yeah, I appreciate it. And I so value that you gave us some of your time today. Again, thank you, Zach. And I encourage everyone to take a look at your book, Radical Love. It's phenomenal. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. You have a lovely day. Bless you.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.